Like Laurie Nielsen Glenn, I am always entering a long, never-ending conversation in my poetry. My writing is seldom about beginnings and endings because I am always in process, like a poem that has been written, revised, revisited, a poem that knows no beginning or ending, a poem that resonates with the logic in chronological, but also calls out with the rhythms of eternity, of the vast creation that cannot be contained in a prosaic text, with its idolization of unity, coherence, and emphasis. My writing is a breath in a long, never-ending conversation. So I write again, another breath in a conversation that began long before I was and will continue long after I am. And you are invited to enter as well. I live in the world artfully, poetically, spiritually, and contemplatively. Indeed, in my daily experience, I regard artful, poetic, spiritual, and contemplative living as synonymous, or at least as threads that are woven together in a sturdy braid. Contemplation is the action of attending thoughtfully, carefully, deeply, reflectively to something for a long time. Contemplation is akin to meditation, rumination, speculation, prayer, and lingering. Contemplation is the act of looking, of attending, of being open to wonder. As a poet, I am always seeking to communicate at least a little of all that I am attending to. And after 6 decades on the earth, I've really not changed much, at least not much in many ways. I recently wrote a poem from notes written in my journal while on vacation with my wife Lana in Mexico. As I've done for all my adult life, I'm still waiting and watching, recording thoughts and impressions, storying the fragments like sewing a patchwork quilt. And so the poem is titled Riviera Maya. The Caribbean is never still. 4 Australian girls in sun-wrinkled bikinis sprinkle bread in the waves for hungry angelfish. They've never learned they shouldn't eat wheat. While 4 jealous gulls call out their sense of offense, the girls aren't throwing bread in the sky. The girls raise their arms to cover their heads in case the gulls bomb them with angry shit. In a swimsuit like James Bond. That's Daniel Craig's James Bond. In a swimsuit like James Bond. And yes, I'm lingering because I want you to get that image in your head. In a swimsuit like James Bond. I lie on the coral beach. I lie on the coral beach, almost naked, with many other people almost naked. We don't speak, we don't even nod, yet we are all watching, at least most of the time, all glad to be here. I keep peeking at Lana in her bold bikinis, still amazed we first met as children, now parents and grandparents, filled with a long longing, desire always surprises. Had a recurring dream last night, scheduled for a poetry reading, but couldn't find my poems. Like I don't know where they are. Perhaps lost them somewhere between Vancouver and Cancun. Old men are fragile, flabby, fit for little, hardly as fit as a fiddle. We old men all look the same. We old men all look the same, except one old man struts by in a thong. In a thong. Brave imagination, even if I recommend letting imagination do its work. A pelican hovers, dives into the sea, hopeful for breakfast, much like a poet. Seized by the sea, I might yet see the sea, the aqua sea, like the Schaeffer fountain pen I used in grade 7 to write essays, never poetry. Like the Caribbean, never still, I still hope to write with a poet's attention to what is there, a poet's penchant for what is not there. Like the Caribbean, I am never still, always in motion, significantly energized by emotion. I live in the world as a husband, father, grandfather, professor, Christian, and poet. Above all, I live in the world with an abiding sense of gratitude for the countless privileges that I daily enjoy. Nevertheless, after more than 23 years as a professor of education, I still don't feel at home in the contemporary academic world, where I think too many of us live with a senseless fervor for strident speed, back-breaking busyness, and clamorous competition. In all these years, I've been sustained by Roland Barthes' call for texts that offer the possibility of a dialectics of desire, of an unpredictability of bliss, an unpredictability of bliss. I engage in writing in order to gauge how well I am living with wellness. In all my reading and writing and lingering with language, I'm seeking not only a love of literacy or a literate love of the word, but a lively love of the world. Like Laurie Nielsen Glenn, I continue to enter a long, never-ending conversation in my poetry, and in ways I understand only a little. Poetry fills me with hope for each day's journey. And out of that hope, I learn I'm not looking for home in the academy or anywhere else. I am at home in the conversation, in the process, in the continuing. I am now a grandfather to 4 granddaughters with the magical names Madeline, Mirabelle, Guinevere, and Alexandria. That's a poem in itself, isn't it? I'm going to repeat that poem. 4 granddaughters with the magical names Madeline, Mirabelle, Guinevere, and Alexandria. I'm learning about being and becoming a grandfather as I linger with these little girls who are now some of my most significant teachers. What does it mean to be taught by a child? In the presence of my granddaughters, I am learning to slow down, learning to attend more conscientiously to the needs of others. I am learning to listen. I'm learning with my granddaughters to adjust and recalibrate my experiences of balance, desire, and hope while in the dynamic process of becoming. I am learning to respond, to be flexible, tensile, and resilient. I am learning to be creatively poetic. In hopeful agreement with Mary Dole, I hold fast to how wisdom, not knowledge, is education's only real concern. My granddaughters, Madeline, Mirabelle, Guinevere, and Alexandria, are my best teachers. They teach me to live poetically. My contemplative practice is an artistic practice, and my artistic practice is a contemplative practice. I seek to live poetically. And I start then drawing to a close with a poem titled Mirabelle. My second granddaughter, who at the time of the writing of this poem had almost no language, at least no verbal language, no linguistic language. Mirabelle, you run to your papa, leap into my arms, full of joy for stories. Because you do not have words, we read the texts scribbled between letters, words, lines, songs of love, always yearning to learn. One day you will call out Papa. I hope I remember these days when you invited careful attention, interpretation, writing the unknown line, collaboratively finding our way. You breathe into me a sentence with no punctuation, no capitalization. We speak in cipher, the body's language. We speak in cipher, the body's language, a wild imagining beyond deciphering, a wild imagining beyond deciphering.